And welcome to GTFO. Get the fuck out, part 2 of modern dating. I'm Phia.
And I'm Louie.
And we're just going to get right into it. So part 2 is essentially highlighting me and my take on modern dating. And of course, Louie's going to back me up, hopefully think what you're thinking and say what you're wanting to say. But I can't segue into my opinions on modern dating without telling you a little bit of background. So I was raised Mormon. So the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the new direction from the first presidency out of Salt Lake. That's fresh. So no one's supposed to say LDS or Mormon anymore. We're supposed to say the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Wow. So I'm not Mormon anymore, so I can say whatever the fuck I want. However, I was raised Mormon, and what?
Just a question. What do you know? Where did Mormon come from? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, it actually comes from the fact that Joseph Smith translated a book that he found in a hill, and he called it the Book of Mormon. And Mormon's one of the prophets in the Book of Mormon who gathered all the stories, and it's another testament of Jesus Christ, like the Bible, but not the Bible. So it's more confirmation of Christ's existence, essentially, as I steal your word. But the direction fresh off the press in the news just in the last couple months is the prophet was inspired to make a directive worldwide that we are to identify, or members of the church are to identify as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, not Mormon or LDS. So that's kind of funny to me because the church spent a lot of money in 2008 plus to do I'm a Mormon, that whole campaign. I mean, millions of dollars. And so all of a sudden they're going to have to start saying the full mouth. So sorry, I just like that topic. It's a topic in and of itself. Believe me, we'll get there.
Yeah. Yay, religion. Can't wait.
But today is about modern dating. And so to make my points, I have to say, the goal as a young woman in the Mormon faith is to be a virgin when you get married. And when you're 12 and you're a young woman, you're constantly shown pictures of you and your returned missionary in front of the temple. So kind of like a prince, princess, sealed forever for time and all eternity. So you see that, and your goal is that. And so when I was 12, I wrote a list, what do I want in my future companion, my eternal companion? And so I wanted my future companion to be a returned missionary from somewhere cool, not Detroit, Michigan or Florida, but somebody who went on a mission like to Italy or France or India. So I had very specific wish list items when I was 12 that I actually ended up later manifesting. The only problem is I was raised outside of Utah, so I was a little bit boy crazy. So we're not to date in our faith until you're 16. And even when you're 16, you're to go on group dates with the idea to reinforce virtue. Okay, so the whole goal is to be a virgin when you get sealed to your eternal companion in purity, so that you can live forever after, right? Like the movies. Yeah.
Do you think that happens for the majority of Mormon kids?
I think really it would surprise you how many succeed in that. But to be honest, most young men before missions and young women are probably in the bishop's office, which is like confession booth for Catholics, dealing with some sort of offense and trying to get right with the Lord. So I never thought, I was very arrogant, very pious, very fun-loving. I was always in youth leadership positions when I turned 12 and was in Young Women's. Right. When I turned 16, for whatever reason, I wasn't in charge, finally. And I think I guess back then I remember thinking I could relax a little bit. All the eyes of my peers weren't on me. And I used to think maybe that's why I lost my virginity at 16, was because I wasn't in charge of anybody, like in youth leadership role.
Right.
So, but what I did do right as a young lady in the Mormon faith was my boyfriend was Mormon. I mean, we were taught not to date outside of the church, that heathen Gentiles,
Yeah.
So I guess in some ways I did it right because I thought when we discovered sex, which is definitely natural for that age. Of course, we were devastated, right? We took steps at church to fix it. And I was confident I'd marry him. Like we just sort of thought, like Fiddler on the Roof, well, we'll just get married. There was no children involved, but
Right.
that's because my mother put me on birth control right away, which was very scandalous.
Really?
But I repented and applied to Ricks College in Idaho and got in, which was BYU Idaho now, like it used to be called Ricks College. But I messed up again. I met this guy in Dallas who was going to go to BYU and on a mission to, I don't remember where, and I dumped my boyfriend and dated him, and he and I messed up right before he left on his mission. So my application to college was revoked. The bishop and the church leadership didn't want me up in Idaho at Ricks College. I was at that point, dubbed, impure and not fit to go to Idaho or BYU, anything church related. And it didn't get me down. I thought, I went to prom alone. I was promised to this young man who ended up going into the Air Force and marrying in the temple to someone else later down the road. But
See?
I thought he was going to be my husband too. That's how naive, when you take that big offense against the Lord. I thought, well, it's a grievous sin right up to murder. Like, you can give life and you can take it away, and that's why they're equal in Mormonism. So
Hmm.
I was feeling pretty good about myself, of course. You know,
Yeah.
I'm joking. I was totally always repenting because I had messed up. So I got right with the Lord again, and I was in a leadership position as a single adult in Fort Worth, Texas. And um, I was, Mormons, I don't know if anyone knows this, but we dance. So the opposite of Footloose. We are encouraged at age 14 to go to youth dances. And then when you're a young single adult, anywhere in the country, there's a dance every week. So instead of clubbing, I literally was at gyms with, the ball of glass and the lights, very middle school.
Yeah.
That was my young adult dating. And the goal is to be married and have kids. I mean, that was my purpose. And besides that, I was taught to get some sort of trade or career. So a lot of my peers went into nursing because it would be a good, if your provider that you ended up marrying couldn't provide, you could provide too.
Right.
So I got my medical assisting diploma and I was ready to marry. I mean, that's all I wanted to do. But if you aren't a virgin, suddenly men have some sort of sixth sense because I got myself right with the Lord again and was determined to be, a recycled virgin. And I met this
Uh, Just a,
27-year-old
just a side
at a
note. I
church.
think I think I'm a virgin again at this point. Just
Are
saying.
you a recycled virgin?
Yeah. Just that's how I am. But I'm sorry I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, you can interrupt anytime because if you're thinking it, someone else is thinking it. And if
Yeah.
you're confused, just interrupt me.
All right. Sounds good.
So, um, I'm 19. I'm feeling like a piece of shit. I'm in the workforce. My girlfriends are dating return missionaries. They're all virgins, and they're getting engaged. They're doing things right. And I meet this mysterious Navy guy at a church dance, and he's in nursing. And I'm like, oh, I'm a medical assistant. And he got in my pants in short order. So I just really had no good taste in men. Like I really thought everybody was the one. And that's my problem. That's my
Mhm.
Achilles heel since I was a child. Like, oh, he's the one. Like everybody's always the one. So so
You got a new one. Sorry.
yeah. No, it's okay. So as a young adult, I mean we're talking like 99, 2000, 2001.
Okay. Okay.
Um I started to think it was the church. So I went what's called inactive. It means I just stopped going. Because in my mind, and I was pretty wise, I just thought, I believed it. I believed everything about the Mormon church at the time, but I felt like if I would just stop going to church, I would stop running into these guys because they're all Mormon. It wasn't helping. They were getting
Right.
in my pants. So I
Right.
blamed them. So funny
Well,
enough, I actually stopped going to church and moved to Arlington, Texas, which is where the, Dallas Stadium used to be. It's where the Texas Rangers. I got a
yeah.
job in an apartment and moved to Arlington. I just moved out of town and stopped going to church so nobody would really know,
Right.
like my parents or anything,
Yeah.
or my siblings or my friends. And back then it was funny, on a radio station, you could call and make a profile and people can hear your profile and then leave you a message before it was like Tinder. So I met somebody, and I'm going to use his real name because who the fuck cares? But his name was Brian. I got a
No, get the
secular
fuck out,
guy.
Brian. Just kidding. Sorry.
Yeah,
I know
exactly.
Brian. No.
I know. So my master plan was to find a secular boy who I knew I'd never marry because they're not Mormon, but
Right.
that could kind of protect me while I went to college. So that was my 19-year-old 20 brain, okay? And I
Yeah.
did, but he was a loser, big time loser. I'm working, he's always unemployed, I'm paying all the bills. So I set this precedent long before like I got married. But for whatever reason, that old missionary that I cheated on my first boyfriend with found a letter, like wrote me a letter that got forwarded to my apartment, and that boyfriend got the letter, and it was innocent, right? Like I didn't control who would send me a letter.
Right.
So when I got home from work, he just, who the fuck is this? I read it. I'm like, oh, that's an ex fiance, or we were never engaged. We were promised. See, I wanted to be engaged to everybody, but
Yeah.
I was never really officially engaged. But he treated me so bad, like choked me, like, because this guy had written me.
Wow.
So he was a bad guy, but he was also my shield. Kept me. So I called this old boyfriend from work,
He was your
and we,
shield, but I'm sorry. He was your shield, but he choked you.
yeah, it's just stupid.
There's a flaw
We
there
were
in that.
we
Just
were
go ahead.
together probably a year and a half. Like
Yeah.
I was working and going to school and
Right.
paying all the bills while he freeloaded. And you know
Yeah.
what? It's funny. I was all the lease was in my name, so I kicked him out. But he tried to convert to Mormonism to keep me. He was stalking my mom's house, and I was pretty
Wow.
much hiding out in Arlington at my friends that I worked with. But I up and moved to Boulder, Colorado, and started to go back to church when I was 20, 21. And by now, I'm an old spinster in Mormonism because you're supposed to be married off at 18, 19. Okay, that's your
Right.
job.
Yeah.
Now I'm 21. My friends are all married and having their first kid, and
Yeah.
I'm hiding in Boulder. And I 9/11 happened right after I moved there, and something happened with me where I just felt like I'm gonna do this thing 100%. I know I've had sex with 3 people in my life,
Oh my
four at that
God.
like 4 at that point. Yeah, I felt like a piece of shit, just to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
But I picked myself up and I actually went to church in Boulder, the young single adult ward where everybody's, single, was on the CU campus, Boulder campus, and I met the man I married. I mean, he was everything on the list that I made when I was 12. Returned missionary, pure, good guy. Um, and I remember I would pass the sacrament, which is kind of like communion, taking the bread and water. When you're not worthy, you can't take it. So I would
Right.
say, don't you notice I don't take the sacrament? Because he was definitely like Peter Priesthood, and I was not Molly Mormon. Like I was
Yeah.
like passing the bread and water. So we actually got engaged, and the bishop was upset about it because all my records transferred to my new ward in Boulder from Texas,
Okay.
and they
That's great.
saw, even though you repent, for some reason the church had record of everything that I'd ever done.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I was trying to get right and do my penance which was going to take a year. And, baby's daddy wanted to take me to the temple, but I wasn't worthy because you're supposed to get married in the temple. It's kind of like getting married in the Catholic Church, but it's very important, and it's not valid if you don't. Does that make sense in God's eyes? So
Yeah, I hear
the
you.
discussion to, separate while I got right with the Lord and then we just engaged. But I was like, no way, we've come so far. And, we met in January, he proposed in March, and we eloped in May. So for anybody who thinks that doesn't last, I think it has to be a perfect combination of religious upbringing likeness, because that would never normally happen. Like it
Right.
just doesn't these days. We hear our grandparents' stories like that, but we made it work. We had a wonderful marriage for 14 years. We have 2 kids. We were supposed to have 5, but after 1, we were like, what? And so I was monogamous for 11 years, happily married.
Wow.
The
Same number.
reason, what?
Same number as mine. 11 years.
Yeah, 11 years of monogamy. And then we both discovered after he went to grad school and things, and we struggled. And about the time I was in 30 and he was 32, we had a lot of questions about our faith and explored those together and decided that it was just a business. So no offense to anyone who's active Mormon, but it just wasn't for us. In fact, I removed my name. So we were living in Utah at the time, and our kids were like, 7 and 5. So neither of them got baptized, because in that religion, you baptize your kids when you're 8. I was baptized when I was 8. Baby's daddy was baptized when he was 8. So we broke that
Why
whole
8?
thing.
Is that part of the Book
8,
of Mormon?
it's Joseph Smith, the founding prophet of Mormonism. It was his inspiration that's the age of accountability. So when you're 8 years old, you're supposed to know right from wrong. But before then, babies are innocent and 1-year-olds are innocent. But 8, you should know better.
Huh.
So
Weird.
we were super poor, living in Salt Lake. We moved from southern part of by BYU, where his family lives and where we had a small business. We moved to Salt Lake and then quit going to church. So just like that pattern when I did as a young adult, but went inactive, but still believed, we did the same pattern. We just moved and stopped going, so nobody would talk or wonder.
Right.
And
Right.
I petitioned to remove my name, because it was very important to me to not be associated, or my records and all of that. So, back up, we eloped and then got married in the temple a year later, and that's the one we celebrated. So I was already pregnant with our first kid, just like the plan. That's the Lord's plan: married, kids, endure to the end.
Right.
So
Right.
here we were breaking all the norms, and part of that first year out of Mormonism, I was making acquaintances with a women's group. We called ourselves infidels. So there was
Huh.
probably 75 of us women who are ex-Mormon who would get together and do book clubs and, just discuss the secular safety. It's not sharks. It's all fine. There's not sharks in the water outside the church. There's freedom and happiness and goodness. And we had kind of this group. And one of the books was that us infidels read together was Sex at Dawn. And that's basically a book that highlights the relation between Homo sapiens and bonobos, so humans and monkeys.
Yeah.
And they're the closest relative in evolution to humans, and it makes the case that we're not meant to be monogamous. So I read this book, and I'm like, baby's daddy, you've got to read this. So he reads it, and we were toying with opening our marriage, because as a wife who had had premarital sex, albeit not planned, I was lucky, because here I was in this women's group where all these women were virgins, got married, went to BYU, had kids. They all feel like they were robbed of a natural upbringing, whereas I just lucked the fuck out by just
Yeah.
somehow being a human who believed it all, but also believed in atonement and repentance. I
Right.
lucked out. So I was amongst my own baby's daddy, who was a virgin when he married me, And I was just dumbfounded. Like, you've got to go sleep with people. You got to see what that's like. And I was arrogant. I was sort of like, I don't need to do that. I've already done that. So
Oh,
we discovered, OkCupid. Tinder wasn't that big in 2010. It was about 2011, 2012. But
right.
OkCupid was, and Plenty of Fish was. So we were in Salt Lake, and I joined a society called Sex Kitten Societies. Salt Lake is wonderfully open, gay friendly, no, nonconformist.
Right.
So it was a great place to be when we were kind of exploring those things. Honestly, it was fabulous. When I joined Sex Kittens, a lot of them are just swingers. And I knew right away that when you open and unlock that door, it leads to other doors and windows and, and
Yeah.
crawl
Yeah.
spaces. And so um, I knew right away. I just judged swingers. Most of them were in their 40s, and those who weren't, they have their own set of rules. Like, my baby's daddy dated some swingers, and like the husband would drop her off and he would have to check in. Weird stuff. And they would
Right.
even try to convert you to their perception, right? Like, um,
Absolutely.
it's safer to be a couple, and but what I saw and witnessed was just kind of high school, like, oh, you fucked her, well, I'm gonna fuck him, and it just felt wrong and immature and animalistic. And so me and baby's daddy just quietly on our own decided we're gonna have an open marriage. He can do his thing one weekend, I'll do my thing a weekend. We'll do something together as a family, and we'll do something together as just a couple. So we
Yeah.
did that pattern, and we had that balance. And just to be honest too, we were kind of enlightened. We didn't feel like we were better than anyone, but we knew that we didn't need rules. We just needed, like, our only rule was be safe and have fun.
Yeah.
And
That's great.
remember, we opened that door with the idea of me thinking it was just a shame that he'd never had sex with anybody. Well, what I didn't know, and he didn't know either, is when you get online like that, and so my modern dating stories all come from my open marriage mostly. So
Yeah.
I had no clue that when a woman goes online as a married woman, you know, you're like dangling a piece of meat in front of a bunch of dogs, like a
Absolutely.
steak. I don't care what you look like, you're just a juicy steak. And I was so ignorant and I guess sheltered up to that point that I didn't realize, think about the church dances and then married and monogamy. Um, I wasn't prepared for the attention I was going to get. And then baby's daddy wasn't getting any. Like, I felt
Right.
like I had to broker and negotiate for my friends to sleep with him, or he wouldn't text women back, and I'd have to coach him. So we were very different than other couples you would meet in like an open marriage. We were more polyamorous, sort of, where there was this kinship and a foundation of 10 years to build from, where I
Right.
where I knew that if I grabbed his ass, he wouldn't even notice. But if someone
Right.
else grabbed his ass, it would make him feel good. And I wanted that for him. So,
Yeah. You, and just to insert a little bit here, I in a future one when we talk more in depth about marriage, I'll add my polyamorous kind of situation as well. But you're absolutely right. The thing that happens is, women are showered with attention, and men are essentially left to kind of fend for themselves at this level. Like you said, it needs like intervention usually from the wife, to even move it forward. I feel like,
exactly.
yeah, and I have a few examples of that whenever we do dive into this that exact topic. But continue to dating, please
Yeah,
continue.
I am gonna focus just on dating, but I needed to lay this foundation so people understood that when I share my modern dating stories, I was married. most of it. So but also ignorant. So
Yeah,
basically,
absolutely.
just to kind of, I got online, people, and I didn't understand. Most men would say, "Are you real? Are you a robot?" And I would say, what are you talking about?" So those were weird little intricacies, like, um, you know, they would think I wasn't real. So that was strange. And just like you said in your episode, you know,
Yep.
it was confusing to be the woman who was real, just to be frank to everyone out there. Like,
Yeah,
you almost
because
need to say I'm real.
right. There's so many robots. It's out of control. And not just robots, there's tons of catfishing going on of
Yeah,
just fake people, pretending to be other people, whether it's a man pretending to be a woman or even, a woman who maybe doesn't feel so good about their own appearance pretending to be a different woman. It's
yeah.
very odd. Yeah.
And I was very innocent, and so was baby's daddy. I mean, he wasn't, I was getting bombarded. I mean, I had to delete, I remember deleting them after an hour and being like, I'm not going to do that. Like, that's not what I'm looking for. Like, I wanted a lover, like one lover, like a romantic, mythical creature that would just respect my marriage, not try to steal me. And, like, I don't, and I remember just thinking, baby's daddy was, oh, I accidentally charged $75. Well, why? Well, this woman told me to click on this other thing. If there was
Oh my God.
something to be Pied Pipered, baby's daddy fell for it. So it was crazy,
Yeah.
like trying to help him have these experiences. Now, eventually he did, but I met someone, we were also very slow. We took our time. We weren't ready. We understood the concept, but we didn't, like I said, I want to talk about dating, not so much the process of opening a marriage, but
Yeah.
I, long story short, I ended up, getting action first, and it wasn't part of our plan. Like, I
Right.
remember just the first experience I had was a prominent ex-Mormon, kind of a pseudo celebrity. So that was weird. He was a podcaster, actually. He was
How
the first
funny.
person I slept with and dated. Well, we didn't date. It was just like a hookup, and I was disappointed. It felt like, I wanted a relationship. And so I I had another date, and I thought, well, I was very sloppy dating because I didn't know it was so sinister out there. Just
Right.
people, and I was flattered because you're kind of like, wait, he wants me? Wait. And I didn't know, when you're kind of raised in patriarchy, you don't put a break on to that. Like, I have girlfriends who would, but I wasn't one of them. Like, I'm submissive and like, okay, go with the flow, and then, okay, don't talk to me. Like, I'd be mad about it, and then they'd ghost you. So you're like confused.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I ended up settling with a character for 4 years. I had a long-term lover, but it was not ideal. I mean, I romanticized it, but his reality, I was just an easy piece of ass. I started dating married people because they wouldn't try to steal me. So I'm super scandalous morality wise because I didn't care about people cheating on their wives. I was
Yeah.
like the ultimate mistress. And I mean, I remember one time feeling like I was some sort of pity fuck superhero in Utah. And
That's so
you know,
sad.
we relocated to New Mexico when we had been open 2 years. So when we relocated to southern New Mexico, I dated a little bit. And I remember I would get ghosted or my biggest memory of modern dating was Plenty of Fish, southern New Mexico. Um, I get all dolled up for this guy. I really like him. And it's the second date. And he just, my kids are ready for bed. My baby's daddy's all excited for me, but not sexually, but like, I'm all glowing, like, I'm going out tonight. Cause I mean, being a mom, you kind of get to kind of play, you get to be beautiful and admired. And so I was in a good mood and everybody felt it. Right.
Yeah.
30 minutes went by, then an hour, then 2, and then 3. Totally ghosted. So my baby's daddy witnessed me every time thinking, no, this is the one. This is the guy. Like they would ghost me or not follow through on something, or it was awful.
Right. Wow.
And I've done so many things, especially in southern New Mexico dating. Like, I just feel like I need a man to answer for all these men that are shitty. And so I don't understand the ghosting thing. You brought it up on yours, but I just don't get it.
It's just we live in a society that doesn't respect people anymore. Like there's no, when you meet people on an app, it's so easy to just not talk to them again. You block them, you block their phone number. If you don't run in a circle with them, the chances of you running into them is very unlikely. So ghosting is just a quick and painless way of breaking up. Painless for the person who's doing the ghosting, I should say. Not for the person feeling it, obviously.
Yeah, and I experimented as I discovered every layer, line upon line, precept upon precept. One of the dates I went on, this guy in southern New Mexico, I really liked hooking up with him. He respected my marriage. He was all about it. And at one point he said, well, Phia, anybody dating a married woman is just in it for the ass. And I said, are you in it for the ass? He's like, well, yeah. And it totally changed my perspective. And it took 3 years, okay, for that to happen. I didn't
Yeah.
know. That's how ignorant. I really thought it was meaningful. It was to me, but it was that moment that it was one-sided. So that was devastating, which caused some sort of feminist default mode that I didn't know I had to turn on. Suddenly, that year, it was my 13th year of marriage, I was done. I wasn't even going to put out to my husband unless he was going to woo me. Like I was just wanting equality. I had this whole new feminist awareness sort of thing, like anger, pissed.
Right.
And it actually came to an apex when my longtime lover, I would call him Armando, he ended up knocking me up. And then there was a little bit of drama with baby's daddy and him that I ended up, terminating the pregnancy. I got my tubes out and I moved out. I wanted a separation because I was out of my mind. I think women go batshit crazy in their mid-30s. So it's not about women are crazy anyway, but I'm telling you, if you have a good woman and she's between 30 and 37, just be her anchor. We're fucking batshit crazy. And if you look at scientifically, it's our chemistry, okay? Whether you have kids or not, things are happening. It's not premenopause things, but it's our sexual peak is happening. Our, awareness and, looking back, that really fucked up my life. Not the open marriage, but just sort of just saying, look, I'm moving out and we're going to just be separated. And that is what modern dating really started, because I thought, oh, we'll separate and then we'll just be forced to end up finding each other again and everything will be great. But he actually met a wonderful woman who baby's daddy is still with to this day. So ladies, don't separate for some social experiment. You'll lose them to some other bitch right away. So if you got a good one, don't tempt fate. Because he's a great guy, but we were on different trajectories anyway. He went atheist, I'm all spiritual, and it's what it is, and I'm fine with it. I took my kids to Disney World. I made it all about them. I had started dating, but I was lonely and depressed, and being a hopeless romantic, I'm one of these people that need to be with somebody. I'm not codependent. I just do better. I'm a giver. My life is better when I have somebody to put my energy into. Not fix per se, but I made it all about the kids when we separated. And after Disney, I thought, well, I'll just find me a guy. And so I went on OkCupid and I met this dreamy man who convinced me to get a divorce, who convinced me to marry him, who turned into a woman, and also had weird sexual. I was totally a tool and a puppet.
Right.
So,
I never met him.
right, he changed his name, but that I've just really, of my own choices and own stupidity, and it's okay. Like, I'm at peace with it. I had a lot of therapy. I really took the time out to get to be comfortable with me. And, last year, January to July, I maintain that I didn't date. I will say I slept with a few people or a couple people, but two of them were the same person. So it's, I really, really dialed back all of that, kind of where you are now. I was done with the game. I was aware, I was awake, and I was done. I remember thinking before my 37th birthday, I even tried to get baby's daddy back, but it was too scandalous, so I let it go. Like, my kids are older now. They're like, leave it alone. So I just let it go. And I finally turned on Tinder. You know why? Because that is where baby's daddy met his gal. I mean, they slept together 3 days straight and didn't even know each other's first names, and they're still together. So I thought, all this other way, all these years isn't working. And I'm not going to date married men anymore. I'm not looking for that. I don't want to be a premier mistress anymore. It's not fulfilling. I don't want to have meaningless sex. I was done, and I had been to hell and back personally. I turned on Tinder with the idea that I was going to do exactly what you were saying. I was going to go in with the purpose and intent of the opposite of what it's known for. And that is where I met the person I met before, my fiance. And I was really excited about him. And turns out on our first date, he was like, "Oh, my girlfriend doesn't know I'm here. She gets off at 1 a.m. So I promptly had bad taste, even after a second marriage, like 5-minute marriage. And I knew that, so this is my fiance, Mattman, and I'm bringing him on my part because I just really wanted him to speak for an answer to all the problems of dating as a woman and men. Because here's the deal. I lowered my search age, and that's where I met Mattman. And all I was looking for at this point in my life was a man who wanted to be a man, stay a man, who was attracted to women. And, he engaged with me on Tinder, and he asked specifically, "Why are you talking to me?" Once he established I was real. And I said, "Well, it's all your list of generic manly things. I mean, he's like Army, not all of us are bad. So he's in the National Guard. He's into sports. Like, I just really, at this point in my life, wanted a generic male extract. And that's what I found with Mattman."
Yes. Yes.
That's a simple generic male extract. Hi, Mattman. Welcome to the.
Hi. Yes, generic. I am as generic of a man as I could possibly be.
I got more than I bargained for with him because he's super
opinionated.
He's opinionated. He thinks women are the cheaters. Like, that's been the weirdest rub with me. He's not a chauvinist who I kind of wanted him to be, like, just to answer for the chauvinistic things that I've endured or you've endured with men, to explain that. But he isn't that. He's always the one getting cheated on, and he's always the one. So I have a hard time defending females when I don't know. I'm not familiar with that being the norm, but in his reality, Mattman's reality, women are the quintessential cheaters, liars, complicated, crying, don't know what they want, can't provide for themselves until he met me. So it's strange.
Right. And, and that's funny because I can actually sympathize with that because that's how my marriage ended as well. Mostly was really cheating on my wife's part more than my part. Not claiming innocence, but again, we'll get into that when we talk more about marriage in the future. But go
Right.
ahead.
As far as like your guys' topic on like ghosting, I feel like when it comes to a guy that ghosts, I feel like he hasn't really made up his mind because I feel like he thinks, oh, she's not wanting to come over right away. She's not wanting to, fuck me. So if she's just going to waste my time with just wanting to talk, get to know me when I just want to fuck, then there's no really reason for me to even have any type of communication with her whatsoever. So I feel like when people ghost, I'm including men and women in this too, because I mean, let's be realistic here and be honest here. Not all men and not all women ghosts. It's just a few small little groups of people that do that. But I feel like if they don't get what they want, regardless of the gender, then they're just going to ghost you regardless. And to me, I think that's probably one of the most fucked up things you could possibly do to somebody than just telling them straight up, hey, this is all I want. And, I just want no strings attached. That's all I want. And that's basically how ghosting kind of works.
Right.
Well,
yep, I hear that.
And I think like I said during your part, Louie, is that I think when that happens to you multiple times, you become the ghoster. I mean, have you felt that you went through a phase in modern dating where you were the one that was going to be the dick, or fuck somebody and not take names? I mean, I went through these horror stages where I tried to experiment with that to kind of really get a grasp of it. And
right.
you do get to a point, I mean, don't you think? Have you ever ghosted someone?
You're absolutely right. I think after it happens to you a couple times, you start to think that, oh, this is just how it's done nowadays, that this is normal and I should probably just embrace it. And it doesn't feel good doing it, though. I will say it feels shady, and it feels like just a nutless way of approaching something that should just be a normal conversation.
It's a lot of lost souls. And so it's just about, me even looking for someone of quality on Tinder was me tempting that whole opposites attract. And me lowering the age was me challenging my false beliefs that I can only get along with someone my age or older. It's just not true. And so it's about like getting outside your comfort zone and, being engaged again. This is my default state. I mean, if I could be engaged the rest of my life, I would love that. But Mattman's never been married before, so he's, got to try it.
She's already like my fourth engagement already. So I've already had 3 engagements prior to this. And so I feel like this is it. I feel like if this doesn't work, then Louie, I'm sorry, man. I'm just gonna have to go for you. Sorry, man. I mean, if you're, as masculine as you say you are, I mean, I'm down. I'm totally down.
Man, don't work out. I'm gonna have to go for you too, Louie.
All right.
And that's my take on modern dating. It's all I really wanted to get out there.
I don't know. I hear a throuple coming up.
I do too. The possibilities are endless.
Endless.
Till next time.
Sweet. Love you, everybody. Have a great night.